So you'd like to know how teaching MBSR and being mindful has helped me live with cancer. And I say live with cancer because I was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 1995. And at the time, I was actually teaching a class and also teaching professionals how to practice and teach others MBSR. And I actually heard the news in the middle of a session when I was teaching some professionals, telephone call. And so I remember actually very vividly taking that breath and just using my mindfulness to find a balance when so much, my whole world seemed to shift in that moment. And I feel that once a person learns that something is life-altering and a chronic disease or a life-threatening disease really can change your life very dramatically, it's really important to know that there's a home inside of you where you can be at peace. So you're able to manage all the different changes that will take place. And it helped me be in the present moment. So actually, I was teaching then, and for my first rounds of chemotherapy, I was able to keep teaching. But being mindful also allowed me to be honest about what was happening. And so I told the people in my class this is what was happening, and I'd lose my hair, and if it bothered anyone, they could go into a different class. So I was willing to be authentic and direct with my own experience and not put it on anyone else, but use it right then and there as an example of we don't need to be ashamed, we don't need to hide. We can allow what is true to be present in our lives and still live fully. And then at a certain point of time, after I finished this round of chemotherapy, I discovered that the cancer was growing again. So 6 months after my first series of chemotherapy treatments, which took, maybe 8 months, I don't quite remember, but I learned that I would have to have much more intensive chemotherapy and a procedure called a stem cell transplant, where you get very intensive chemotherapy so that it wipes out your immune system, and you have to be hospitalized. So at that point, I couldn't teach anymore. And I remember going to a teacher's meeting and saying, I'm so tired, but I have to teach, this class tomorrow. And I remember them looking at me and saying, Elana, you don't have to teach this class tomorrow. We'll help you. We'll teach for you. So actually, I was able to go into the class with one of my colleagues, and we switched in the middle of the class, and I said, this is what's happened, and my friend is going to be, my colleague will be teaching instead of me. And I remember moving from the center of the room where I was teaching to the sides to sit with everyone else in the room. And it was a very powerful moment. I mean, so powerful that people still occasionally come up to me and say, I was in that class. How are you? And I say, oh, thank you so much. I'm fine now. But I think that was an example of being able to use mindfulness. I needed a little help in acknowledging that I had limitations. So I was able to acknowledge it, but the mindfulness wasn't only for me, it also was something my colleagues were living and are living. And so I felt that connection again of how we're really all in this together. And one of the things about teaching mindfulness-based stress reduction is we say that there's no separation. There's not a you and a me, but that we're really all connected. So there's no other. We're together. And so when I moved from the position of teacher to patient, I felt actually comfortable doing it. Sad that I had to now cope with something as serious as a stem cell transplant. But I felt very grateful and able to feel a tremendous amount of love and caring that I think helped support me through a very difficult period when I actually almost died. And then again, from this experience of moving through a life-threatening time when I was on oxygen, I could barely breathe, and surviving. And the nurses were impressed that I was able to surrender, that I didn't fight what was impossible to fight. If I had, I actually wouldn't be here today because I wouldn't have been able to breathe. I had oxygen mask. But from that came a study where we've been bringing mindfulness onto the transplant unit. And it's been a very large study, randomized, 3 groups, 280 people. And I just feel so blessed that what I learned to simply be here and open to what is, rather than fight what couldn't change, can help other people work with their own minds and body and notice what's right with them as well as what is painful or difficult. So I hope that it's a long answer, but and one more, since I'm giving a long answer, is I continue to live with uncertainty because I still have non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I have had 2 recurrences. One of my recurrences was I was on a retreat that's called a loving kindness retreat, metta. And in the middle of the retreat, I felt some pain on my side. And I'm breathing and walking, and I'm saying, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease, and I kept feeling the pain. And I had to go to the doctor, and I was actually rushed to the emergency room, and the very next day I had surgery. But I was calm. It still surprises me how calm I was. And I think that's because I had been practicing for a few days, just repeating words of loving kindness to myself. So when this happened, even though there was pain, even though I ended up having to have surgery, it's hard to believe, but it really wasn't a problem. I mean, I didn't like it. I wished it hadn't happened, but I was really calm. And I continue to use this awareness that we all are going to die at some point in our lives to help me be more fully present here, right now, which is what we teach in the program.